On September 14, 1897, a man walked in with a satchel and a confession that would never be printed. They tried to turn him away because even his words were treated like trespass. He opened a yellowed medical journal, proof that memory can be archived and weaponized.
The editor's hand shook because the man across from him wasn't begging for mercy. He was demanding a record. He didn't bring a story. He brought documentation. Cold, meticulous, impossible to dismiss.
For 8 days, the editor wrote, while the old man emptied a lifetime of secrets onto paper.
The paper never ran it. Not because it was false, because it was dangerous to the myth they were rebuilding.
So the record was sealed, waiting for a future brave enough to open it. This story is a dramatization about knowledge, survival, and the terrible mathematics of oppression.
In his first home, healing wasn't magic. It was memory, plants, patterns, and the balance between harm and help. His father taught him one truth: the same knowledge that saves a life can also end one. He remembered everything: names, smells, effects, like his brain was built to catalog the invisible. Then the world broke. Raiders came all night, and a life built on healing was dragged toward a market built on chains. In one night, his teacher was gone, and the lesson that remained was survival. He walked toward the ocean with two things left: his body and the knowledge he refused to let die. In the dark, time stopped making sense. So he counted plants in his mind the way others counted prayers. Trauma tried to erase him. Repetition fought back. Name by name, leaf by leaf, he held on to who he was. Land didn't mean safety. It meant a marketplace where human lives were priced like tools. In the dark, he built a garden no whip could reach. The city didn't greet him. It priced him. The fields taught him the American system, not just labor, erasure, a machine designed to break spirit first. He learned quickly, in this place, words could get you killed, so he stored them like ammunition. Then the plantation's center of gravity shifted. The owner got sick, and desperation cracked open a door. The doctor did what doctors did then, confident, forceful, and often wrong. Someone whispered a name, the quiet boy who collected plants like he was remembering home. In that room, he wasn't a field hand. He was a healer again, reading symptoms like a language. Desperation makes deals. He asked for freedom of movement, and they said yes, thinking it was still theirs to grant. The swamp wasn't wilderness to him. It was a pharmacy, if you knew how to read it. By morning, the fever eased. And just like that, his value rose higher than the field could hold. They thought they were rewarding loyalty. What they really gave him was access, and access is power. He healed the sick in the quarters and watched the crimes in the big house. 2 ledgers, 1 man, no witnesses. He didn't strike at random. He collected certainty: who harmed, who ordered, who benefited, who would never face consequence. Years later, the first owner died, officially from illness. Unofficially, Solomon learned the system couldn't see what it refused to imagine. Death changed nothing. The plantation simply redistributed bodies, and Solomon's path moved to the next doorstep. In the doctor's home, Solomon learned their language, their status games, and how easily expertise could be mistaken for obedience. He learned to read, not as permission, but as leverage. Every page widened the gap between what they thought and what was true. In parlors, they wore respectability like perfume. Outside the light, they ran a system built on screams nobody counted. His greatest skill wasn't medicine. It was the mask, calm, helpful, invisible, while the truth stayed locked behind his eyes. He established a pattern: earn trust, gain access, wait.
The system's arrogance did the rest.
Another death, another cause scribbled as natural. The papers never asked the question they couldn't stomach. The ideology that made slavery possible also made him invisible as a threat. Their certainty was his cover. He set rules. No randomness, no spectacle, no repetition.
Some men hid cruelty behind prayer and charity. Solomon knew.
He didn't need anger. He needed confirmation. Because in this world, proof was the only shield. The decline came like weather. Slow, believable, explainable. That was the point.
They treated symptoms, argue labels, and missed the one truth their society couldn't admit. The servant beside the bed could outthink them.
He mourned in public because performance was armor. Grief was expected. Suspicion was not. Each sale was meant to control him. Instead, it expanded his map. New doors, new secrets, new faces that deserved consequence. The years stacked like bricks. And inside those years, the quiet war continued. Without ban. Some men didn't just own people. They broke families like merchandise, then bragged about the profit. He watched the kind of cruelty that doesn't leave bruises. It leaves absence. And he stored it like evidence. Then the man who controlled other bodies began losing control of his own, and the city called it misfortune. With their tools and their pride, they could label everything, except the one possibility they refused to see. He kept count, not as triumph, but as accounting. In a world that priced people, he measured consequence.
The double life demanded perfection. One slip, one wrong expression, and the punishment would be public and final. He dreamed of being discovered, because the system didn't just kill bodies. It made terror a daily climate. After decades, he wanted more than revenge. He wanted air, real freedom, and a plan that didn't rely on miracles.
He saved small amounts over years, because escape isn't a sprint. It's a slow construction of options. To walk away, he needed a new name. Paper armor, convincing enough to fool a world addicted to documents.
He chose one night of chaos, not to teach a method, but to create a distraction. A storm loud enough to cover footsteps.
By dawn, the city was chasing explanations. That's what he needed. Eyes everywhere, except on him.
He didn't run. He walked, because panic draws attention, but confidence looks like belonging.
In a concealed room, he listened to boots in the street. Searchers hunting an idea they couldn't name.
Before sunrise, a light-skinned Caucasian man moved through cargo shadows, because freedom often travels where paperwork doesn't. He crossed the same ocean in reverse, still hidden, still in darkness, but now the destination had a different name: life. On April 4th, 1854, he stepped onto a street where no one could legally claim his body.
He chose a name that could survive. And he started again, with the same hands that once had to pretend.
For decades, he healed openly, because in freedom, the healer part of him could finally breathe.
But under the floorboards, the past stayed locked, because confession isn't safe when the world still loves the lie.
He watched the country rewrite the story, turning brutality into nostalgia and resistance into silence.
He became known as a gentle old man, and nobody saw the other life he carried.
Near 90, his body began announcing the end, and the question became unbearable. If he died, who would correct the record?
He packed proof the way others pack clothes. Because he wasn't returning for nostalgia, he was returning for history. The city that sold him now had to listen, even if it refused to print a single line.
Disbelief lasted until the evidence started lining up. Dates, names, records, each one a nail in the coffin of denial.
And then it began, the story he carried alone for decades, finally leaving his body and becoming ink.
Before the first detail, he set the terms. No rumors, no sympathy, no softening. Only a record that could outlive fear. He recited names like prayers, each tied to a memory of cruelty that never made it into polite history. His targets followed a rule. The man had to profit from bondage, commit harm, and stand close enough for consequence to reach him.
Their favorite illusion was obedience. And inside that illusion, he became the most dangerous person in the room.
He didn't fight in fields. He fought in hallways, sick rooms, and kitchens, where control looked ordinary.
The genius of the disguise was simplicity. Decline can look like fate when the world expects illness more than justice.
He framed it as testimony, not instruction, because the point wasn't how it was done. The point was why the system made it imaginable.
He learned the most important skill in America: to look harmless while thinking like a strategist.
He described the cruelty like weather, constant, unremarked, normalized, until the human mind has to choose what it will become. His memory became a courtroom with no judge, a place where evidence piled up, even when the law refused to look.
Sold from house to house, he didn't gain freedom. He gained proximity to the men who built the cage.
They suspected wives, rivals, debt. They rarely suspected the enslaved healer, because racism made that possibility unthinkable.
Years of pretending carved grooves in the soul. He described it as living with a jaw clenched for decades. Then came the detail he couldn't say without pain. An innocent person punished because society preferred a convenient culprit over an impossible truth. He didn't ask forgiveness, but he admitted the cost. The system always finds someone to crush, especially when it can't face its own humiliation.
By the 1850s, revenge wasn't enough. He needed to leave, because staying meant eventually being caught by probability.
The last man he described wasn't just cruel in private. He defended cruelty in public, turning violence into policy and pride.
He wanted the city's untouchables in one room, because the message wasn't death, it was vulnerability.
He described a night of confusion, not a method, only that the powerful suddenly felt what the powerless feel daily: uncertainty. Then he walked away like he belonged to the morning, because the fastest escape is the one that looks normal. He carried documents that declared him free, because in America, ink can decide whether you live or disappear.
For 3 days, he listened to the city hunt a ghost, while he stayed perfectly still inside someone else's courage.
The ocean swallowed him again, only this time he wasn't chained. He was concealed by a network of people who refused to accept the law as moral.
He told the editor what it felt like. Not joy, shock. Like waking up and realizing the cage was gone.
In freedom, he returned to healing, helping workers, mothers, children, because he believed life and death sit on the same spectrum.
They knew him as a gentle man with steady hands. And that split, public healer, private secret, never closed.
When war arrived, he didn't carry a rifle. He carried knowledge, because bodies break the same way, no matter what flag is flying. He served quietly, treating people the country had chewed up, because freedom without care is only a different kind of abandonment.
He watched hope rise, the first fragile belief that law might finally recognize humanity. And then the backlash, when power, threatened, tries to rename itself as order.
He told the editor the moment he knew he had to speak, when lies became tradition, and tradition became history.
He preserved proof like a man guarding a fire, because he didn't trust society to remember what it wanted to forget.
At 981, he returned to the city that once owned him, because history was being rewritten by the people who had done the writing.
The editor understood the danger. A confession like this could spark violence, because truth threatens myths that keep power comfortable.
So he chose silence, publicly. But privately, he couldn't destroy it. He sealed.
His closing message was simple: call us property if you want. Property can still plan. Property can still resist. Property can still win.
He left Charleston the way he entered it, calm, as if saying, "You can refuse my story, but you can't undo what it proves." 3 weeks after finishing the confession, his body gave out,
quietly, like a candle reaching the end of its wax. 200 people mourned the man they knew, and none of them knew the other story, because secrets can die peacefully too. The editor sealed everything, transcripts, journal, notes, because he wasn't brave enough to publish, but he was too shaken to erase. And for more than a century, the story slept, while the world told itself easier versions of the past.
In 2019, hands finally opened what fear had sealed, and air touched paper that had been waiting for witnesses. The ink looked old, but the voice felt immediate, like the man was still in the room, insisting, "Don't let them lie about us." Historians checked names, dates, records, finding the same pattern. Men who died as illness exactly when the confessions said they would.
Then came the argument, because a story like this forces a question society hates. What do you call justice when the law is the weapon?
He wasn't a clean hero. He wasn't a clean villain. He was a human being shaped by a system built to destroy him. He didn't confess to be forgiven. He confessed to correct the record, so no one could claim the enslaved accepted their chains.
Some ran, some fought, some hid others, some sabotaged quietly.
The journal reads like proof and like a wound, because every line asks what a person becomes when the world refuses them justice.
The editor chose silence, but silence is never permanent. It just delays the day a story finds its moment.
Some denied it, some raged, some went silent, because a confession doesn't just accuse the dead.
Law scholars argued definitions, ethicists argued morality, historians argued context, and the story refused to fit any single box.
The question isn't comfortable. When the law is built to protect oppressors, what options remain for the oppressed?
He wanted 100 years to pass so the story could be read with clearer eyes, and so the system couldn't immediately destroy it.
In the present, people argue about what should be honored, but the stone isn't a celebration. It's a reminder that oppression creates desperate math.
Some brought flowers, some brought outrage. Because history isn't just facts, it's the argument over what facts mean.
Strip away the shock, and his core claim remains. Intelligence can be resistance, especially when the oppressor believes you're incapable of it. The greatest weakness of a violent system is its arrogance, because arrogance makes you ignore the quiet person who's watching everything.
The editor became the second keeper of the secret, trapped between fear of consequences and fear of forgetting.
One life crossed 3 centuries of meaning. Stolen youth, hidden war, quiet freedom, then a delayed reckoning in a modern world.
He obsessed over the symmetry, years free matching deaths claimed, like the universe trying to balance a ledger it never meant to show. The story doesn't hand you comfort. It hands you a question and dares you to answer without lying to yourself.
Whatever you call his actions, one fact stays. Slavery was a machine that forced human beings into impossible.
He wanted to be remembered not for spectacle, but for the quieter courage of planning under constant threat, with no applause and no safety net. Every line in that transcript is another person's hand, trying to keep up with a life too large for one body to contain.
Myths are loud, but records endure. That's why he insisted on paper, because paper outlasts denial.
He died in a bed he owned, under a roof he chose, something the system tried to make impossible from the moment it stole him. The distance collapses when you read it. The past isn't past, it's a voice on paper, speaking directly into your moral comfort.
He wanted one truth to survive him. Enslaved people weren't passive. They resisted in every language available.
He called knowledge a weapon, not because violence is holy, but because understanding can cut through power that depends on ignorance. The story carries a warning. Systems that dehumanize create enemies they can't recognize, until the consequence is already inside the house.
The last page doesn't close the debate. It just ends his voice and leaves the argument to us. If this story unsettles you, it's doing its job. Comfort is easy. Truth is expensive.
The record doesn't ask you to cheer. It asks you to remember what humans do when trapped, and what systems create when they make justice illegal.
This is why he confessed, so the world could never again pretend the enslaved were helpless. Not after a story like this survives.